Did you know that if a video has poor image quality, viewers are less likely to stop watching than if it has poor audio quality? Like this audio now, for example. It would be difficult to watch a whole video like this. And yet, editing audio is still something that people avoid because it either doesn't cross their minds or they think it's too complicated. But the good news is that fixing audio in Davinci Resolve isn't actually as complicated as it looks. And if you're editing the same voice each time, then you only need to set it up once. So in this video, I'm going to show you my simple workflow to get clean, clear dialogue, how to set your levels correctly for YouTube, how to mix in music and sound effects without the audio getting messy, and how to save all of these settings so you don't have to start from scratch every time you edit. I should also add the majority of this tutorial is from one of my previous videos where I re-edited the whole of one of my subscribers' videos, but I just thought the audio section could do with being its own standalone tutorial. Plus I wanted to add a couple of extra bits to it as well. So if I come over to the Fairlight page, this is where I'm going to make my audio adjustments. I'm going to be making these adjustments to the whole dialogue track, rather than each individual clip. It's much easier and faster to do it this way, rather than changing the volume on one clip and then copy and pasting it to all the other clips, and then having to go back and make changes to all of them. So to work out how loud the audio needs to be, I'm going to be using these controls up here. These are called loudness and control room. And before I do anything, I need to make a couple of adjustments to this. So I need to firstly change this from the default setting of BS1770 to YouTube. And now you can see it says YouTube, and then in brackets it says LUFS. So without trying to go too deep into it, LUFS are basically a measurement of how loud the whole of your video is. So for YouTube, the target loudness is -14 LUFS, as you can see indicated here. If I was to change this to Netflix, you can see this has a target of -27 LUFS, which makes sense to me because whenever I'm watching YouTube and Netflix on my TV, YouTube is always a lot louder. And if you go on YouTube itself, you can actually right click on a video and select Stats for Nerds, and there's a stat for volume here. The goal of this is to be as close to 0 as possible. This will equal the -14 LUFS. So you've probably had it where you've been watching a video and it's been really quiet, and then you watch someone else's video and it's really loud. Well, the chances are that the first video was probably way quieter than it needed to be, like this one here. So next I want to click on these three dots again and make sure lock metering to transport is ticked. With these settings now set up, I can now hit play, and you'll see that after a few seconds it will show me in this box here what the LUFS level is at for the part that I've just played. The LUFS level is supposed to be measured over the whole video ideally, and there are ways to have it analyse the whole video, but for talking head footage where the levels aren't really changing a lot, I don't usually do that. I'll usually play it for about 10 to 15 seconds, and that's normally enough. There's loads of videos out there that will go into more detail about this, but this is just how I like to do it for talking head videos that have no music or sound effects like this. So the first thing I'm going to do to bring the audio up is I'm just going to whack up the volume on my dialogue track and then hit play again. This is now sitting at around -21, so it's still too low for the target of -14. So I'm also going to whack up the bus tracks volume. And the bus track is effectively a master control, bringing all of the audio levels up. And as this video is just a talking head video with no sound effects or music, I'm safe to bring this volume up a bit. So I'll bring it up to 7 and hit play again. Okay, so this is now just under -14, which is perfect. We don't want to risk going over -14, so this is fine for now. Now that I've got a general volume level sorted, I'm now going to play with the EQ on my dialogue track by double clicking here. The EQ is a powerful tool that lets you change the different frequencies in the audio. It's really helpful for shaping the sound of your voice, and it can make things sound brighter, less muddy, and is really great for getting rid of unwanted tones in the audio. So the first thing I'll do with the EQ is I'll turn on band 1 and band 6. These are set to be the low and high pass filters. This is just a quick way of cutting out all of the unneeded frequencies that are above or below this middle section, which is where the voice is. So if I hit play, you can see that the voice is sitting in around this section here. So if I add the low and high pass filters and drag them in, it's just going to cut out those unnecessary noises. Next, I want to remove any bad tones in the audio. The way I do this is by making sure that number 3 is set to this bell shape and lifting it up to the top. And then I need to turn the Q factor all the way up to max so it's really narrow, so it's not affecting too many different frequencies. Then I'm going to hit play and move this left and right until I hear a really high-pitched noise that stands out. This will tell me that there's a tone that is too strong in that area.
Going to help you get sales. And it's using a new AI-powered design tool where it'll put your profile in front of more customers. And the best bit is it's absolutely free, and you can get it in the description below. And you don't need to know.
So right here, it's clearly getting more distorted. So I'm going to simply drag this down to around here. It's just removed a bit of harshness and sounds a bit clearer now. And then I'm going to do the same with number 4.
So most businesses would just go to Google Maps, do a search for their business, and then they would then see where they rank. But there's a problem with that, because the mistake is that isn't what customers see.
And then lastly with the EQ, I just want to add a bit of brightness to the voice to make the high end sound a bit clearer. So I'm just going to change number 5 to the bell shape, bring the Q factor down to make it wider, and then bring it up ever so slightly. So if I was to exaggerate this and bring it all the way up here,
in incognito mode, and then type,
you can see it adds way too much to the high end. Or if I was to bring it all the way down, then it starts to sound muffled and only gives you those low end frequencies, like as if Zane was in another room.
I'm going to use a company that I've worked with before in the past.
So I'm just going to set it to around here. And if I just toggle the whole EQ on and off, depending on what speakers you're listening on, you'll hopefully be able to hear a difference to the voice. It's just a bit clearer.
Are you still not seeing the calls that you expect from Google Maps? Are you still not seeing the calls that you expect from Google Maps?
Next, I'm going to move on to the dynamics, which I can set up by double clicking here. The Dynamics has 3 tools inside of it that are all designed to help control and normalize the volume. So for example, there might be some parts of the audio that are a bit louder than the rest of the audio, which will make the volume spike up too high. The Dynamics will help with that. So it's about trying to get everything to a more consistent level. So if I hit play, you can see these little green circles are showing where the signal is on this graph. And this green line here is showing what we're doing to the audio. And these axes are showing the decibels. So the further along the line it goes, the louder it is. So if I turn on the compressor, this is going to effectively bring the volume down of the loud parts of the audio. So you can see that when the audio line gets to this blue line, which is the compressor, then it's going to then compress the volume down gradually. And to know whether or not it's cutting much off, you can look at these gain reduction bars. So each one corresponds to each of the controls below. So the first bar is the expander, second one is the compressor, and the third one is the limiter. And if I hit play, you can see that it's showing here that it's reducing some of the volume. So like I said earlier, the aim of the game is to get just under -14 LUFS. But there's also a secondary thing that we want to do, and that is right over here in the control room. This TP value stands for true peak. So you don't want this to go over about -1 or -2 ideally. Otherwise your footage is peaking. So if I turn off the compressor here and hit play, you can see that it's over 0 and it's red. So it's peaking, even though our LUFS are looking correct. So the LUFS are analyzing over a period of time, whereas the true peak could happen at any one moment. So it's then just a balancing act of turning on the compressor, hitting play, and seeing how much it's cutting off. And then bringing up the threshold a little bit to cut off less. And just trying to get it around to the -2 mark. So here is good. I can also use this ratio control here to control how harsh it cuts the audio. So if I was to set this to max, it's nearly completely cutting off the volume here so that any audio above this volume gets brought down, which is actually what the limiter does. It will completely stop anything going over a certain amount. But the compressor is just a less harsh way of doing that and makes it a bit more gradual. So I'm going to set this to around here. But now you'll notice that the LUFS are now looking too low. So that's where this makeup slider comes in. This is just going to boost the overall output signal, which means we'll need to toggle the compressor again, and between these two controls, we'll hopefully be able to get the volume to somewhere that sounds good.
They would then see where they rank, but there's a problem with that.
You can also use the expander here to essentially do the same thing, but to the lower end of the volume. So you can reduce down the lower parts of the audio, which could be things like general background noise. So I'll normally set this to around here, where I can just see that it's taken off a little bit from the gain reduction up here and not affecting the voice. This gate control here is a similar thing, but a lot more harsh. As you can see, it just completely cuts it off. So I just stick with the expander. Now, I'm not an audio engineer or anything, so there will be way more advanced ways that you can use this tool by also using the attack, hold and release controls along the bottom here. But for the type of work that I normally do, this gets me to where I need to get to just fine. One of the last things that I like to do to the audio is add a multiband compressor. This can be found underneath Effects, Dynamic, Fairlight Effects, and then just click on Multiband Compressor. The multiband compressor is similar to the compressor in the Dynamics, but you can basically adjust the different audio levels for the different frequencies, while also applying some compression to it at the same time. So earlier on with the EQ, I removed some of the harsh frequencies, but now I want to boost that area back up, but without the harshness that we previously removed, obviously. So for example, you can see that it's split into these 4 different bands. If I hit play, you can see that it's showing me where the voice is sitting, and when these bands move up and down, it means that they're either bringing down the voice or bringing it up. It's visually showing these bands working. So the area that I like to use this for is around the band 2 area. For Zane's voice, this is where the real body of his voice is sitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this S button here to solo the frequencies that I'm going to be affecting. Now if I play this back, that's all I'll be able to hear. So I can adjust these controls left and right to find the area that I'm after.
In front of more customers. And the best bit is it's absolutely free and you can get it in the description below. And you don't need to know anything technical. So let me show you how to use it. So imagine you run a bridal studio.
Around here is good for Zane's voice. So I'm just going to boost this up around 2 or 3 decibels, just to make the body of his voice sound stronger.
Benefits. Okay, so let's look at this then.
And that's all I'll normally do with the multiband compressor. You can go deeper with it and have a look at the low and high ends of it as well to remove more unwanted noises. But for this situation, I think it's sounding good. And this is all that I would actually do to Zane's voice here. If I was editing someone else's, like Ed here, then I would need to do a couple of extra steps. So with Ed, he has a bit of echo in his audio and also a light hiss in the background because his mic's broken. So I add a third-party plugin to remove the echo, which is called Clarity VX D-Reverb Mono, which is normally set to around 50.
A channel blow up overnight and thought, what are they doing that I'm not? Well, when this happens, it's often for the same reason. So today I'm going to show you what that reason is. I'm going to show you how I've used this strategy with businesses to help them go.
And then I use the AI voice isolation to remove the hiss in the background, which is normally set to around 40 or 50. I did a whole section on the AI voice isolation tool in my AI video. It's an amazing tool for getting rid of background noise. It's pretty unbelievable how good it is. And if you don't push the strength of it too hard, then it won't impact the voice negatively either, so I would highly recommend it. So with Ed's audio, you can see a real difference in the before and after.
Have you ever seen a channel blow up overnight and thought, what are they doing that I'm not? Well, when this happens, it's often for the same reason. Have you ever seen a channel blow up overnight and thought, what are they doing that I'm not? Well, when this happens, it's often for the same reason.
Zane's voice actually sounds really good with his microphone, so the difference isn't as huge with his, but it's still enough of a difference. So this is the before.
Are you still not seeing the calls that you expect from Google Maps?
And after.
Are you still not seeing the calls that you expect from Google Maps?
You can actually also save your audio track settings as well, so that you don't have to set these settings up every time. This works really well if your subject is always filming in the same place and with the same microphone. So once you have all of your settings finished, you come up to Fairlight and then Presets Library. And then if you come down to Global Track Presets, you just select the track with the settings on that you want to save, which in this case is the track that I named Dialogue, and then hit Save New, and then Create New. This will save it here, meaning you can add these settings whenever you need. If you're in a new project, you can just come up to the presets library, come to Global Track Presets, select your preset and the track you want to apply it to, and then just hit Apply, and it's done. I also have preset settings for my music and sound effects tracks as well. So down here you can see that the pink track is always for music and the yellow tracks are my sound effects. I have the volume levels set to -20 by default, which is a good starting point as the general rule for music and sound effects is to have them between 10 and 20 decibels less than the dialogue. So if we take one of my previous videos as an example, you can see here that the dialogue is coming in at around -10 decibels, which is good. and then the music is coming in at around -28 roughly. So it's not overpowering the dialogue. And another thing that I've also changed on the music and the sound effects tracks is the EQ. So in here, I've brought down the high end with number 6, and I've also brought down this area here, as this is the area where it's most likely going to be competing with my voice. So lowering this just makes my dialogue stand out a bit more. After this, I will listen to it back and play around with the audio levels until I feel like the audio isn't competing with the dialogue. There's nothing more annoying than when you can't properly hear what someone's saying because the music and sound effects are too loud. So when I feel like I've got them to a good level, I then drop the audio level on the music and sound effects tracks by another 5 decibels, just because it normally needs to be slightly lower than what I actually think it needs to be. Next, I need to make sure that the whole video is properly mixed for the platform that I'm uploading it to. So like I said earlier in this video, YouTube in this example has a target LUFS of -14 and a target true peak of around -1 to -2. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a way to quickly test the true peak and LUFS levels for the whole of the video in one go, rather than just listening to a small section or having to sit through the whole video. So to show you this, let's take this video as an example. This is my promo for my preset pack, and I've got a couple of different songs and lots of sound effects on it. So first, I'm going to come up to timeline, then audio, and then bounce mix to track. So what this is doing is it's going to take the output of the bus track, which is the whole audio mix, and then render that out onto its own track in one long clip. So I'll come down to this drop down here under destination track and select new track. Otherwise, if you select an existing track, then it will render it over your existing audio, and we don't want that. I'm going to then hit OK, and it's going to go through and give us this complete track. Now this track is not for me to use in the final video, it's just for me to analyze and then delete afterwards. So to analyze it, I can just right click it, come to clip operations, and then analyze audio levels. Here I want to make sure this is set to YouTube and then hit analyze. So this is telling me that I've got a true peak of +0.6, which is over what I want, and a LUFS level of -16.4, which is slightly under what I want. So in this situation, I would need to go back and probably play with the compressor a bit to bring down those peaks and then also bring up the main body of the audio slightly. And it's just a bit of going back and forth with doing the things that I showed you earlier until you get these to where you want them to be. But always make sure to remember to delete that mix track that was rendered out for analyzing. Otherwise the audio is going to be way too loud when the video gets exported. And that is how I edit audio in Davinci Resolve. And if you found this video helpful, then watch this video next. It's the original deep dive video that this audio tutorial came from, which shows how I would re-edit one of my subscribers' videos. I point out all of the mistakes they were making and walk you through exactly how to fix them.